Dr. Elena Vasquez had worked as a doctor in many difficult places across the galaxy, but walking into Omega-7 Detention Center felt different. It felt like entering a place where people had forgotten every rule about taking care of sick people. The place held aliens that the Colonial Defense Authority called dangerous enemy fighters. But after Elena's first day checking on prisoners, she could see that the line between war prisoner and torture victim had disappeared completely. Prisoner X-47 is kept in our highest security area, Warden Hayes told her as they went down through locked doors to reach the deepest parts of the building. She's a Valeri fighter, very dangerous. We keep her alone in a special cell to keep everyone safe. Elena looked at her computer tablet. The notes showed that X-47 hadn't seen a doctor in more than 8 months. But the rules said every living prisoner should get checked by a doctor every single month. What's the prisoner's real name? What kind of alien is she? Elena asked. The number X-47 is all you need for medical work, Hayes said in the flat voice of someone hiding the truth on purpose. The files we gave you explain what Valeri bodies are like. You just need to check if she's healthy enough to stay alive. The words healthy enough to stay alive made Elena feel sick to her stomach. It sounded like they only cared about keeping someone breathing, not about making them comfortable or helping them get better. She had taken this job thinking she would give real medical care to imprisoned aliens, not help with what sounded like carefully planned suffering. The maximum security area felt more like a grave than a prison. The cells had extra thick walls built to hold aliens who were much stronger and bigger than humans. But what bothered Elena most was the silence. No talking, no movement, just the heavy quiet of a place where hope had been killed on purpose. X-47's cell needs special safety rules, Hayes said, stopping in front of a reinforced door that looked strong enough to hold a tank instead of a living person. Don't touch her. Keep the visit short, and do all medical checks through the barrier wall. Elena looked through the window and felt her professional calm break apart at what she saw inside. The prisoner was a female Valeri. She stood 12 feet tall, which made even this specially built cell look small. Her bones had a crystal-like structure that should have made her skin glow with a soft light showing good health. Instead, her skin looked dull and gray from not eating enough food. She wore heavy chains that stopped her from sitting in the meditation positions that Valeri bodies needed to work properly. When was the last time she ate? Elena asked. She could clearly see the signs of someone starving to death, and Valeri people needed much more food than humans. We give her food every 72 hours, Hayes answered. It's enough to keep her body working. Elena stared at the prisoner, at this person whose number deliberately erased her real identity. She realized she was looking at someone who was being starved to death through careful planning made to look like normal prison rules. That's completely wrong for Valeri bodies, Elena said, her medical training making her speak up even though she knew Hayes wouldn't like it. They need to eat every day, with special minerals to keep their crystal bones healthy. What you're doing is killing her slowly, while pretending it's just keeping her locked up. Dr. Vasquez, Hayes said with the controlled anger of someone whose power was being questioned, X-47 is listed as a dangerous enemy. How we treat her depends on security needs, not on making her comfortable. Your job is to check how she is right now, not to change how we run this prison. Elena looked at the prisoner again. Her training in alien biology helped her understand what she was seeing. The Valeri woman's eyes showed intelligence and awareness even though her body was breaking down. The way she sat suggested someone keeping their dignity despite shameful treatment. Her stillness showed the controlled patience of someone whose warrior training had taught her how to endure. I need to examine her the right way, Elena said. That means touching her and doing a complete physical check. Absolutely not, Hayes answered immediately. X-47 is extremely dangerous. Her kind can crush human bones easily with just a little effort. All medical checks happen through the barrier wall to keep staff safe. Elena felt pieces of a disturbing picture coming together. She realized that calling the prisoner dangerous was just an excuse for treatment that broke every medical rule she had ever learned. Has she ever threatened anyone or tried to escape? Elena asked. Just being here makes her a threat, Hayes said with the kind of circular reasoning that couldn't stand up to real examination. Valeri warrior prisoners are dangerous no matter how they act. Elena studied the prisoner through the window. The woman's weak condition would make fighting nearly impossible even if she wanted to. She was clearly dying from being ignored on purpose. Her once great strength had been reduced to barely enough to survive. What's her real name? Elena asked. Prisoner numbers are enough. Her name, Elena interrupted, her medical authority finally overriding the bureaucratic dodging. Every patient has the right to be called by their real name. Hayes was quiet for a long moment. He looked at records that apparently had more information than he'd first suggested. Thyra Nash. Her former title was Princess of the Valeri High Council. We captured her during the Battle of Zirion 3 years ago. Elena felt shocked to learn that this starving prisoner was alien royalty. Capturing her had been a big political win for human forces. Even more disturbing was realizing that someone so politically important was being kept in conditions designed to make her die slowly instead of being traded back to her people or put on trial. Princess Thyra, Elena said, speaking to the prisoner directly through the communication speaker. I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez. I'm here to give you a medical examination. The response came immediately. Thyra's eyes focused on Elena with sharp intelligence. She straightened her posture even though it obviously took great effort. When she spoke, her voice had the musical sound typical of her species, but also the weakness of someone whose throat was affected by long-term starvation. Dr. Vasquez, Thyra said, her words careful and measured. Your use of my actual name instead of my prisoner number suggests either unusual respect or dangerous naivety. Elena made her decision to secretly bring proper food to Princess Thyra after spending a sleepless night researching Valeri body science. She discovered that the official feeding schedule was carefully calculated to cause maximum pain while avoiding quick death. Armed with mineral supplements disguised as medical testing equipment, she returned to the maximum security section with the kind of nervous determination that had carried her through her most challenging medical cases. Dr. Vasquez, Thyra said as Elena came near her cell. You're coming back even though the facility bosses obviously don't like it. This means either you feel professionally required or you're making a personal choice. Personal choice, Elena answered honestly. She activated the medical barrier that would let her make direct contact while keeping up the pretense that she was just doing routine checks. What they're doing to you breaks every rule of medical ethics I've ever learned. Thyra's face showed surprise at Elena's directness, followed by something that might have been gratitude mixed with tiredness. Your honesty is nice, Thyra said. Most humans who come to this place treat me either like a dangerous animal or a valuable object. Few admit that I might be a person with thoughts and feelings. Elena began her examination while secretly giving Thyra the first real meal she'd had in weeks, high-protein food bars with added crystal minerals that Valeri bodies needed for bone health. Can you tell me about your capture? Elena asked. Understanding what happened might help me give you better medical care. Better medical care? Thyra repeated with bitter humor. She accepted the food with desperate control that showed someone whose warrior training included surviving starvation. Dr. Vasquez, how I was captured matters less than why I'm still being kept here. I'm not being held as a war prisoner, but as pressure against my people's fight against human expansion. Elena noticed how Thyra's damaged condition affected her ability to eat. Months of not enough food had hurt her digestive system so badly that eating normal amounts was difficult. What can you tell me about the Battle of Zirion? Elena asked. Your people called it a battle, Thyra said, her voice getting stronger as the food began helping her system. My people called it a desperate attempt to stop the destruction of sacred places that held irreplaceable genetic records. I was leading a rescue mission to save biological knowledge that took my people millions of years to develop. Elena felt pieces of the political situation falling into place. She understood that Thyra's capture had been part of a corporate plan to get access to alien biological resources. The genetic records, were you able to save them? Elena asked. No, Thyra said with deep sadness. My capture meant that the records fell into human hands. Corporate businesses now have biological information that represents my entire species' evolutionary knowledge. Elena realized she was treating someone whose imprisonment helped drug companies that wanted to exploit alien genetic knowledge without admitting the rights of the species that developed it. Princess Thyra, are you the only Valeri being held here? There are others, Thyra confirmed. Her empathic abilities let her sense their presence even though isolation rules kept them apart. Warriors who served under my command, scientists who understood the value of what we were trying to protect, regular citizens who were captured during the evacuation, all held in conditions like mine. Elena felt the size of the situation growing. She realized that systematic starvation was being used against many alien prisoners. How many others? 43 Valeri in this facility alone, Thyra replied. And the conditions I face are considered privileged compared to what prisoners classified as lower value endure. Elena's professional horror increased as she understood that she was seeing systematic torture disguised as detention, used against dozens of beings whose only crime had been defending their own cultural heritage. Dr. Vasquez, Thyra said carefully, giving me proper food is an act of kindness that could cost you your job here. Why are you willing to take such risks for someone you just met? Elena paused in her examination. She thought about how to explain her reasons to someone whose entire experience had been shaped by systematic dehumanization. Because watching innocent beings suffer when I can help breaks everything I believe about what it means to be a doctor, Elena said. And because I think the political situation that led to your capture was designed to make humans forget that aliens are people with rights, not resources to be used up. Thyra's response was to study Elena with the intensity of someone judging potential allies in a hostile place. Dr. Vasquez, if I trusted you with information about my people's situation, would you be willing to use your position to help others beyond just giving them food? Elena felt the weight of a decision that would either commit her to actively fighting against her employers or force her to abandon people whose suffering she was uniquely able to help. What kind of help? She asked. Documentation, Thyra said simply. Evidence of conditions that break interstellar law about prisoner treatment. Proof that what your authorities call detention is actually systematic torture designed to force compliance through suffering. Elena understood that Thyra was offering her the chance to expose systematic violations that could destroy entire political careers while potentially saving dozens of lives. The risks, Elena began, are significant, Thyra agreed. But Dr. Vasquez, you've already chosen to risk your career by giving unauthorized medical care. The question is whether you're willing to risk it for a purpose that goes beyond one prisoner's better nutrition. Elena looked at the alien princess whose dignity stayed intact despite months of systematic abuse, whose intelligence had recognized Elena's moral character despite having every reason to distrust human motivations. Princess Thyra, Elena said, if I help you document these violations, what happens to the evidence? It reaches people who believe that interstellar law should protect all thinking beings, not just those with political power, Thyra replied. The Galactic Monitoring Commission has investigators who specialize in exposing systematic violations of prisoner rights. Elena felt her medical oath pulling her toward a choice that would either destroy her career or transform it into something that served justice instead of just human interests. "What do you need me to do?" she asked. Thyra's smile was the first real expression of hope Elena had seen since entering the facility. "Help me prove that treating aliens with dignity serves human interests better than exploiting them for short-term gain." Elena's documentation of systematic prisoner abuse started with her legitimate medical checks, but grew into a comprehensive investigation that revealed the true extent of detention facility Omega-7's violations of interstellar law. Using her authorized access to prisoner medical files, she discovered that Thyra's treatment was part of a deliberate program designed to break alien resistance through precisely controlled suffering. "The psychological profiles are clear," Elena told Thyra during one of their sessions disguised as medical examinations. "They're using starvation, isolation, and sensory deprivation as tools to force obedience from prisoners who have information about alien resistance movements." Thyra's health had improved dramatically with proper food. This let her access the crystal meditation states that connected her to Valeri collective consciousness. Through these connections, she could give Elena intelligence about conditions throughout the facility that no human observer could have gathered. "The Zephyrian prisoners in Block C are being subjected to sound torture that disrupts their natural harmonic communication," Thyra reported. Her empathic abilities let her sense the distress of beings held in other sections. "The Andromedans in Block F are being kept in environmental conditions that slowly poison their breathing systems." Elena documented each violation while keeping up the fiction that she was doing routine medical checks. Her reports showed a pattern of abuse that targeted each species' specific physical and mental weak points. This suggested scientific research into how to maximize alien suffering. "Dr. Vasquez," Thyra said during one of their sessions, "there's something else you should understand about my capture and detention. I wasn't just defending genetic records. I was protecting information that could revolutionize medical treatment for many species." Elena paused in her documentation to focus on what Thyra was telling her. What kind of medical information? The genetic records contained biological templates for regenerative medicine that could treat conditions your human science considers incurable, Thyra explained. Spinal cord regeneration, nerve pathway reconstruction, cellular aging reversal biological knowledge. That took my people millions of years to develop through living together with our planet's crystal ecosystems. Elena felt shocked as she realized that Thyra's imprisonment was preventing access to medical advances that could help billions of beings across many species. And the corporations that seized the records, are they developing these treatments for profit without saying where they came from and without sharing benefits with the peoples who created the knowledge? Yes, Thyra confirmed. Corporate patents are being filed on biological processes that my people consider sacred heritage. Elena understood that she was documenting not just prisoner abuse, but systematic theft of alien intellectual property disguised as military victory. Princess Thyra, if this information reached the Galactic Monitoring Commission, what would be the political results? Significant enough to force major changes in human colonial policy, Thyra replied, but only if the evidence is presented by someone whose credibility can't be dismissed as alien propaganda. Elena realized that her role had changed from providing medical care to serving as a crucial witness whose human status would give credibility to accusations that might otherwise be ignored by human authorities. The documentation I'm gathering, how do we get it to people who can act on it? Elena asked. There are channels, Thyra said carefully. Communication methods that Valeri collective consciousness can access even from isolation. But sending evidence requires someone with security clearance to upload data to networks that reach beyond this facility. Elena felt the weight of responsibility as she understood that her security access made her uniquely positioned to expose violations that could otherwise stay hidden forever. Dr. Vasquez, Thyra continued, before you commit to this course of action, you should understand what success would mean for your future. Exposing systematic violations will make you a target for revenge by people who profit from current policies. And what would failure mean? Elena asked. Continued suffering for innocent beings whose only crime was defending their people's rights to their own biological heritage, Thyra replied. And the precedent that alien rights can be violated with no consequences as long as the violations serve human corporate interests. Elena looked at the alien princess whose dignity and intelligence had survived months of systematic abuse, whose knowledge could advance medical science across many species, and whose continued imprisonment served only to maintain corporate access to stolen biological heritage. Princess Thyra, Elena said, I became a doctor to heal people, not to enable systems that cause suffering. If exposing these violations is what medical ethics requires, then that's what I'll do. Thyra's response was to share through her crystal connection a vision of what Valeri collective consciousness revealed about the broader political situation, human expansion threatening dozens of species, corporate interests driving policies that prioritize profit over life, and resistance movements throughout the galaxy seeking allies who believed in justice over convenience. Dr. Vasquez, Thyra said, your choice to feed a starving prisoner has grown into something that could affect interstellar relations for generations. Are you prepared for that level of responsibility? Elena considered the question while reviewing her documentation of systematic torture, her evidence of stolen biological heritage, and her growing understanding that individual acts of compassion could either challenge or enable systems of oppression. Princess Thyra, she replied, I'm prepared to be the kind of doctor who heals systems as well as individuals, and if that means risking my career to expose violations that break everything medicine is supposed to stand for, then that's a risk worth taking. Thyra's smile carried the satisfaction of someone whose faith in the possibility of cross-species cooperation was being confirmed by Elena's courage. Then let's begin the process of turning your medical documentation into evidence that proves aliens deserve the same rights to dignity and life that humans claim for themselves, Thyra said. The transmission of evidence to the Galactic Monitoring Commission required Elena to use her medical access codes in ways that stretched the boundaries of her authorization. Meanwhile, Thyra coordinated with Valeri Collective Consciousness to make sure the data reached investigators who couldn't be bought off by corporate interests. Their collaboration had grown into something that went beyond their species' differences. Elena's human technical knowledge combining with Thyra's alien political insight to create documentation that neither could have put together alone. The Crystal Communication Network can carry our evidence beyond this facility's monitoring systems, Thyra explained. Her restored health allowed her to access meditation states that connected her to the broader Valeri collective. But the data must be formatted in ways that human investigation rules will accept as legitimate. Elena worked to translate their evidence into formats that would be convincing to Galactic Monitoring Commission investigators, while Thyra provided context about systematic violations that affected many species across dozens of facilities. Dr. Vasquez, Thyra said, the collective consciousness is showing me something disturbing about the timing of our investigation. Corporate interests are planning to speed up prisoner transfers that would scatter evidence and make comprehensive investigation impossible. Elena felt urgency building as she realized their window for exposing the violations was closing. How much time do we have? Days, perhaps less, Thyra replied. The facility administrators have detected oddities in medical supply use that suggest unauthorized food programs. They're planning enhanced security rules that would make further documentation impossible. Elena understood that their careful investigation was being threatened by the very improvements in Thyra's condition that had made their collaboration possible. Princess Thyra, if they put in place enhanced security, what happens to you and the other prisoners? Transfer to facilities where isolation is complete and medical monitoring is eliminated, Thyra said grimly. Effective disappearance from any system that might provide oversight or protection. Elena felt the weight of decisions that would affect not just Thyra but dozens of other beings whose survival depended on exposing violations before they could be covered up through prisoner relocation. Then we send everything we have now, Elena decided. Even if the documentation isn't complete, it's better than letting the evidence be destroyed through prisoner transfers. The transmission process required Elena to access communication networks that went beyond her authorization. Thyra used her crystal abilities to strengthen the signal through collective consciousness channels that could reach Galactic Monitoring Commission facilities. Dr. Vasquez, Thyra said as they prepared to send the evidence. You should understand that this transmission will expose your role in documenting violations. There will be no way to keep up the fiction that you were simply providing routine medical care. Elena looked at the documentation they'd put together: evidence of systematic torture, proof of stolen biological heritage, testimony from many species about violations that served corporate profits instead of legitimate security interests. Princess Thyra, Elena replied, keeping up that fiction would make me part of violations that break everything I believe about the value of life. I'd rather face the consequences of exposing injustice than live with the guilt of enabling it. The transmission worked, sending their evidence directly to commission investigators, while at the same time alerting facility security that unauthorized data had been sent beyond their monitoring systems. Dr. Vasquez to security office immediately. Came the announcement that confirmed their exposure had been detected. Elena, Thyra said, using her first name for the first time. Whatever happens next, you should know that your choice to feed a starving prisoner has grown into something that will save lives across many species. Elena felt the satisfaction of moral choice confirmed by results as she prepared to face the consequences of choosing justice over career security. Princess Thyra, she replied, whatever happens next, you should know that meeting you has taught me what it means to practice medicine in service of principles rather than just protocols. The response from the Galactic Monitoring Commission was immediate and thorough. Alliance intervention ships entered the system with authority to investigate systematic violations of interstellar law. Commission investigators demanded immediate access to all facility records. Alliance peacekeepers took control of prisoner areas to prevent evidence destruction. Dr. Elena Vasquez, came the communication from Commission investigators. Your evidence submission about systematic prisoner abuse at detention facility Omega-7 has triggered emergency intervention rules. You are now placed under Alliance protection pending completion of investigation. Elena felt relief and vindication as she realized that their documentation had achieved exactly what they'd hoped: comprehensive investigation that would expose violations while protecting prisoners from revenge. Warden Hayes, came the Alliance announcement that reached every communication device in the facility. You are now relieved of authority pending investigation of violations of interstellar law about thinking prisoner treatment. All facility operations are now under Alliance supervision. The transformation of the facility was immediate and dramatic. Alien prisoners received proper medical care for the first time in years. Systematic torture was replaced by rules that respected thinking beings' rights. Corporate representatives were escorted away under Alliance authority. Princess Thyra Nash, came the Alliance communication that recognized her true identity for the first time since her capture. The Valeri High Council has requested your immediate return home, pending resolution of charges related to stolen biological heritage. Elena watched as Thyra's chains were removed by Alliance peacekeepers. Her dignity was restored along with her freedom. The alien princess who had been systematically starved was now standing as a key witness in an investigation that would reshape interstellar law. Dr. Vasquez, Thyra said as Alliance medical teams began comprehensive treatment of all facility prisoners. Your choice to see me as a person rather than a number has created consequences that go far beyond either of us. Elena understood that their partnership had grown from medical care to something that challenged the entire system of human colonial expansion based on alien exploitation. "Princess Thyra," Elena replied, "your choice to trust a human with evidence that could have been used against you has shown me what it means to practice medicine in service of justice rather than just human interests." As Alliance investigators began documenting the full extent of violations that Elena and Thyra's evidence had exposed, Elena realized that her simple decision to feed a hungry prisoner had grown into the most meaningful purpose of her medical career. 6 months after the Alliance intervention that exposed systematic prisoner abuse at detention facility Omega-7, Elena stood in the newly established Interspecies Medical Center on New Geneva. She watched Princess Thyra speak to a gathering of medical professionals from across the galaxy. The change from starving prisoner to diplomatic leader had been remarkable. But what struck Elena most was how Thyra's experience had shaped her into an advocate whose authority came from survived suffering rather than inherited privilege. Dr. Vasquez's choice to give proper food despite institutional resistance shows that individual acts of compassion can challenge entire systems of oppression, Thyra said. Her crystal bone structure was now fully restored and glowing with the health that proper care had returned to her. But more importantly, her willingness to document violations and risk her career to expose them proves that human medical ethics can serve justice across species boundaries. Elena felt pride mixed with humility as she realized that their partnership had become a model for cooperation being studied throughout Alliance space. The simple act of feeding someone who was hungry had grown into a transformation of how medical professionals approached their responsibilities to alien patients. "The biological heritage that corporate interests stole from my people is now being returned under Alliance supervision," Thyra continued. "But the real victory is establishing medical rules that recognize alien dignity as basic to proper health care, rather than a luxury that can be denied for security reasons." The audience of doctors, nurses, and medical researchers from dozens of species listened with the attention that came from understanding they were seeing the birth of new ethical standards that would define interspecies medicine for generations. "Dr. Vasquez," Thyra said, turning to Elena with the respect that had marked their relationship since their first meeting, "would you share your view on how medical professionals can balance institutional loyalty with moral duty when treating alien patients?" Elena approached the stage with the confidence that came from knowing her choices had been confirmed by results that went beyond anything she could have imagined when she first chose to feed a starving prisoner. The balance between institutional loyalty and moral duty disappears when you understand that institutions serve people, not the other way around, Elena said, speaking to the assembled medical professionals. "When I chose to give proper food to Princess Thyra, I wasn't betraying my professional responsibilities. I was fulfilling them by refusing to participate in torture disguised as healthcare." The response from the audience was immediate recognition from professionals who had faced similar moral conflicts in their own practices. But individual acts of compassion, while necessary, aren't enough to address systematic violations, Elena continued. "What changed our situation was Princess Thyra's willingness to trust a human with evidence that could expose violations affecting dozens of species. The real breakthrough came when we combined human technical knowledge with alien cultural insight to create documentation that neither of us could have put together alone. Which brings us to the heart of what we're building here," Thyra said, returning to the stage. "The Interspecies Medical Center represents a new model for healthcare that treats cross-species cooperation as a medical necessity rather than a diplomatic luxury." Elena looked around the medical center that had grown from their partnership. Research labs where human and alien scientists worked together on problems that neither species could solve alone. Medical rules that used the biological knowledge of many civilizations. Treatment programs that recognized alien dignity as basic to healing rather than an obstacle to efficiency. The regenerative medicine techniques that my people developed through millions of years of evolution with crystal ecosystems are now being shared with Alliance medical professionals. Thyra explained to the audience. But this sharing serves the interests of all species rather than just corporate profits, because it's based on partnership rather than theft. Elena felt the satisfaction of seeing justice create better outcomes than exploitation as she watched medical advances being developed through cooperation that helped everyone involved. Dr. Vasquez, Thyra said privately after the presentation ended. I have something to tell you about the long-term results of your choice to feed a starving prisoner. What's that? Elena asked. The Valeri High Council has created a new diplomatic position, ambassador for medical ethics, specifically to make official the principles that your actions showed. Thyra said with the formal tone that marked important announcements. They've asked me to offer you the position. Elena felt surprised at the unexpected honor mixed with understanding that her career had changed far beyond what she'd originally planned. Princess Thyra, I'm honored by the offer, but I'm not sure I'm qualified for diplomatic work. Dr. Vasquez, Thyra replied with the smile that had first appeared when Elena chose to call her by name rather than prisoner number. You've already proven that the most effective diplomacy comes from treating beings with dignity, no matter their species or political status. The qualifications you need are the same ones that led you to feed someone who was hungry. The understanding that medical ethics applies to everyone, not just those with political power. Elena looked around the medical center where her simple choice had grown into an institution that served beings from across the galaxy, proving that compassion could be more transformative than any political strategy. What would my responsibilities be? Elena asked. Making sure that medical treatment serves healing rather than exploitation, no matter what species is involved, Thyra replied. Working with Alliance medical professionals to develop ethical standards that recognize alien dignity as basic to proper healthcare. Elena felt the rightness of accepting a role that would let her continue the work that had begun when she chose to see a starving prisoner as a person rather than a number. Princess Thyra, Elena said, I accept the position on one condition. What condition? That we continue working as partners, Elena said. Your wisdom and experience are what made our success possible, and I think the Alliance benefits when humans and aliens approach problems together rather than separately. Thyra's response was to extend her hand in a human gesture of agreement that she'd learned during their months of collaboration. Dr. Ambassador Vasquez, I believe our partnership is just beginning. Elena shook Thyra's hand while looking around the medical center, where their friendship had grown into an institution that proved cooperation could achieve more than either species could accomplish alone. The power that had come from feeding a hungry prisoner wasn't political power, but moral authority, the kind of leadership that came from choosing compassion over convenience and proving that individual acts of kindness could transform entire systems when done by people willing to risk everything for what was right. Any regrets about destroying your original career to help someone you'd never met? Thyra asked. Just one, Elena replied. Watching medical professionals from dozens of species work together on projects that would have been impossible without cross-species cooperation. I regret that it took seeing systematic torture to realize that the most important medical treatment I could provide was refusing to enable systems that caused suffering. In that case, Thyra said with the satisfaction of someone whose faith in cross-species cooperation had been proven right by results. I'm grateful that you chose to see a starving prisoner as someone worthy of dignity rather than just another security number.